Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Teachers, if you have anybody else joining here in just a few minutes, if you can just kind of relay these housekeeping rules and they can just jump on in. So welcome everybody. My name is Anita Gonzalez. I'm the Deputy Director here with New Mexico Mesa, and here with us we have Mr. Kevin Dilly. He is going to be leading your workshop here in just a moment. Some housekeeping notices is, this is a new thing for us. We are working on doing workshops with multiple students from multiple schools, with their teachers. So to aid in this process is if you all are able to change your name to where it reflects at least your first name and then maybe some initials of your school. So that'll help us manage who's on this session. So to do that, if you're not sure how to do that, you can just right click your name at the bottom of your picture and you can go to rename, or you can go to, in the participants window, you can also go to the little 3 dots on your name and just rename yourself that way. But that will help a lot with the moderation, just to be able to know who is on the screen with us today. Also, this meeting is being recorded, so we can share it for just kind of have, the information and the knowledge to share for others. You are welcome to keep your cameras off or on, whatever is your preference. However, we do ask that you do remain participatory, meaning if you have a question, please feel free to either type in the chat or to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question, so you can get, whatever is needed answered. We will be monitoring the chat throughout the session. So if there is anything, you can pop it in there. But again, please feel free to go ahead and unmute yourselves as you'd like to go ahead and get your questions answered. But this is our first session on app design. So I guess with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Anita. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So like Anita said, my name is Kevin Dilly. I'm from Explora Science Museum in Albuquerque, and we're going to try and figure out how to create apps. Okay. Hopefully you guys have an account with code.org. We're going to be using a program called AppLab. So what we're going to do, let me share my screen here. If you have not already, I want you to go to code.org and I want you to log in with whatever your credentials are. If you have like a Google account through your school or something like that, or if you have another one that you've already done. We're going to log in. So it should look something like this. I'm going to log in here on my screen. Once you're logged in, you will be shown your dashboard. And on this, we're going to create, like I said, with a program called AppLab. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of just get started with it. If anybody has not created an account yet, go ahead and create that account. It'll ask you for like your age, some other stuff like that, and then create the account. What we're going to do is create with AppLab. So on the top right, there is this create button next to your name. Go ahead and click on that. It'll bring a drop-down menu, and one of the options there will be AppLab. So let's click on AppLab. And this is what AppLab looks like. So we're going to go through, I'm just going to take you through how to create some simple apps. Okay, so this will help to give you some ideas of the different things that you can create, get you exposed to some of the different controls that AppLab has, some of the capabilities. There's definitely going to be a lot more than what I show you that it can do, but we just have an hour today. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to create an app. I'm going to call it a quiz app. And so first thing we'll do is rename it. So if on the top the top left, if you click rename, it'll let us change it from untitled project. I'm just going to call it quiz and click save. And so now let me just orient you to what AppLab, the layout is. So there are kind of 3 sections to it. You'll see that here on the left, we have our screen. So it looks like a phone screen, right? This is where we're going to design and put objects in there that'll be part of the app. In the center is the toolbox. So this is where we have all the different tools that we'll be able to use. And on the right is our workspace. That's where we'll drop things when we do our coding or to be able to control, change properties of things that are in our app. I just want to make sure everybody is kind of caught up with me here. If not, just raise your hand and let me know if you need assistance getting logged in or anything like that. The other important part about App Lab is that there are some different kind of modes that you can be in. So there's the coding mode, you can see here in the top left where it says code. There's also the design mode, and then there's also data. And you can see that when we click on each of these, some of the things in the toolbox change and the workspace changes a little bit as well. So what we're going to do is start with is we're going to be in design mode. So go and click on the design tab there, the toggle button there on the top left. And in our design toolbox, we can see that there are a bunch of different elements here, some different things that we can put onto our app to be able to control. So for this quiz, we're going to have a very simple quiz of just like a multiple choice question that we'll start with. So the first thing we'll need is a label. So if we grab the label toolbox element here and drag it over and just drop it in here, it gives us a text box. And we're going to use this text box as the text for the question for our first question in the quiz. Now, when this text box is selected, you'll see that in the workspace, it has the properties of the text box. It has its ID, the text that's in it, other stuff about like the size of it, the color of the box, the color of the text, font size, all those different things. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna change the text that's in here. So if I go over to properties and click on text, I'm gonna make it a question about maybe the planets. I'm gonna say like, what is the closest planet to the sun? Okay. So that'll be my first quiz question. And I'm gonna just drag this this box over and make it a little bit larger maybe, and put it in the center of the screen there. And I'm gonna change the font size on it. And that's over in the properties. It has the font size, and I can make that bigger. There we go. And I'm gonna center it as well. So the box that has text alignment, I'll make that be center aligned. And there we go. So there's the question for our first question in the quiz. And the next thing for the multiple choice, we're going to use buttons to give our possible answers. So I'm going to grab one of the buttons from the elements, the design toolbox. I'll put it over here, and I'm going to grab another one. I'll make it, we have two possible answers, okay? And so these buttons, if you hover over either of the buttons, you'll notice that when you do, it kind of shows what the ID of it is. And also if I hover over the screen, it'll show the ID is screen 1. If I hover over that text box, it says label 1. And so I'm going to select this first button, button 1, and I'm going to change the ID of it. So the ID is every single element that you use in your app needs to have a unique ID. That way, whenever we are doing some coding, we can refer to any specific element within your app, okay? So this one has the ID button 1, the other one is button 2, but sometimes it's hard to remember which button is which if it just has those generic names. So I'm gonna call this one, I'm gonna say Earth. This one I'm gonna call Earth, okay? Because that's what I'm gonna make this button be. And you'll notice when I change the ID, the text still stays button. So I'm going to change the text and make that also be Earth. And you see that when I do that, the Earth part, the button says Earth on it now, okay? And we're changing the ID, and we'll come back to that in just a little bit. You'll see why it helps to change the ID of things to something that makes it so that you can tell which button is which. I'm going to click on the other button here, and I'm going to change the ID. I'm going to make this button be Mercury. And change the ID and also the text on it. There we go. So now I've got two different buttons. These are two different options for the answer to this question. And the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to create some different screens. So we're going to make it so that on our app, we have a screen for if I click the Earth, if I get the answer correct, I'll go to a different screen that says, congratulations, you got it right, or something like that. And if I choose the wrong button, then it'll go to a screen that says, sorry, incorrect, try again, something like that, okay? So to do that, I'm still in design mode. If I click on screen 1 there at the top, and you can see that it has a drop-down menu where we can import a screen or create a new screen. I'm going to create a new screen. And for this one, we're going to make this one be the one where it's correct, okay? So I'm going to change the ID of this screen. Instead of screen 2, I'll just say correct. Okay. And I'm going to go up to here and create another new screen. So it has its screen 3, and I'll change the ID on this one to maybe incorrect. Okay. So now I've got 3 different screens. If I click on that drop-down menu, I've got screen 1, incorrect, and correct. And actually, I'm going to go back to screen 1, and I'm going to change its ID to question 1. Question 1. That way, I'll know if I'm just looking at a list of which of these different screens are which. Okay. So let's go to the one that says correct, the correct screen. And on this, let's put a label. And for the label, we'll change the text and make it be something like, you know, way to go. You got the, oops. You got it right. All right, I'm going to change the size of this box. I'll change the font, make it a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll center that. And if you want to, you can also change the text color. And I want this to be kind of celebratory. So I'm going to change the text color. So if you go to the text color, it has the RGB values, the red, green, blue values. You can change the numbers on there if you want to, just to change the numbers to create a color. Or if you click on the black square next to it, that'll let you change the color in a different way. So I'm going to make it kind of a reddish color, maybe. That'll be good. All right, there we go. So there's the correct one for that screen. And let's do the incorrect one. So I'm going to click on the incorrect screen. And I'll take another label over and I'll make it say something about maybe, sorry, incorrect, try again. And again, I'll resize it and change the font size and color, things like that. And so you can write whatever you want as your response. You can make it look however you want. All right. So there we go. So there's my 3 pages, my 3 screens here. I've got my question screen, my incorrect screen, and my correct screen. And let me do one more thing to the incorrect screen. I'm going to, if I get it incorrect and it says try again, I have to have a way to go back and enter a new answer, right? So I'm going to put another button here and drag a button over to my incorrect screen. And this one, I'm going to call it try again. Okay, and so that'll be my ID, and my text, I'll say try again. That's my text. Okay. So now I've done my design part of this simple quiz, right? So I've got 3 screens that I'm going to use. And so when you're designing an app, one of the first things you'll do before you even start doing any of the coding or any of that stuff, you want to think about what is the layout of your app? What are the different screens that you'll have on it? What are the different elements on the screens, right? This is something that you can do on paper and pencil. That way you can quickly just kind of erase or put new things on there. to lay out what it is. So if I were doing this, I would just kind of draw some rectangles, a number of different rectangles for how many screens I want, and then just kind of like sketch on there what are the different things that I want on my app. So we've done our design part now. We've done our 3 different screens, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do the coding part. So the coding is where we let the app know what we want to happen when something happens in the app. Somebody clicks a button, we want that to trigger. So for that, we're going to go to the code button. So it's on the top left there. It's next to the design button. Click on code. And this has our toolbox here in the middle of these different blocks. So we're going to be doing block coding for our coding here. And you'll notice there are a bunch of different menus here with different blocks that are in there. You'll see that there are different colors, right? So the color corresponds to which menu it's from. So if you're not sure where a block comes from, you can look at the color, and that'll help you figure out at least where which menu it's from. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this top block in the UI controls, the user interface controls. This one that says on event, we'll drag it over. And this is the one that triggers other things to happen. So on the event, and we'll choose our ID of what thing we want the event to happen to. So in this case, let's choose the Earth button, okay? So whenever we click on the Earth button, so on event, Earth, click, and then we'll have to put something here inside of it that will be what that triggers. So let's scroll down in the user interface controls to the one, it's the third from the bottom, it says set screen. We'll put that in here. And so this is one where it changes to a specific screen. So the Earth is not the closest planet to the sun, so we'll make sure that it has us go to the incorrect page. And we'll do the same thing for on event. Change the ID to Mercury. And when you click on Mercury, we want it to go to the screen, set screen of correct, because Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. And there we go. So that's our first bit of coding. And let's just test it out to make sure it works. So if you go over to the screen and click run at the bottom, then it's ready to go. And so I'll click on Earth and see it takes me to, sorry, incorrect, try again. I'm gonna click on try again and nothing happens because we haven't coded that yet. But I'll go to reset and run and click on Mercury, and that takes me to the correct screen. All right, so I'll reset it. And so we'll have to do an event for whenever it clicks on this try again button. We want to go back to the question one. So let me do this. So bring over on event. When we click on try again, we want it to take us back to question one. There we go. So now this should be fully working app here, that if I click on Earth, it takes me there, try again, goes back, and Mercury, I've got it correct. There we go. So I'm gonna give you a minute just to kind of play around with your stuff there and change any things that you want. Go ahead and play around with the design of it if you want. You can add more buttons to see if that will that you can redirect, maybe, you know, put Saturn as a button and have that redirect to the incorrect page. So I'll give you just a couple minutes to do that in case I was going a little bit quick for you. You can also play around with the colors of the layout of your thing. So if you click on, for instance, question, the screen here, so not on any of the boxes, but on the screen, you can change the background color of your screen to be something different if you want. You can also use the themes. You'll see that in the design toolbox at the top, there's a drop-down menu of themes, and these are kind of preset different themes that you can use. You can see that when you use it, it'll change maybe the shape of the buttons, the color of the font, the color of the background of things. And so you can try any of those different themes if you want to use any of those. So any questions so far about using buttons and labels and switching from one screen to another, or anything else? All right. So let's move on just a little bit to add some more to our quiz. So I have here just one question. So let's add another question. And for this one, we'll have a different way. Instead of it being multiple choice, we'll have it be where you enter some text into a box, and we'll have it check to see if it's correct or not. So let's go to the design mode. So if you're in code, make sure you click on design. It's on the top left there. And let's add another screen. So new screen. I'm going to change the name of this one to question 2. Okay. And for this one, we'll just make it a simple math problem. So I'm going to drag a label over, and I'll change the text here to something simple, just like 4 plus 5. Okay. 4 plus 5 equals question mark. Okay. And let me make this a little bit bigger. All right, there we go. So we've got our question. And for this, we want to have an input box so that we can have somebody enter a number in there and see if it's correct or not. So let's grab this one that says text input, and we'll put it here on the screen. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll have a button that will be a submit button. So they type their thing in, click submit, and that'll be the cue for the app to check to see if what was entered is correct. So let's put a button down at the bottom here. And this one, I'm going to change the ID of it to submit. And I'll also change the text to submit. Okay. And then if it's correct, why don't we have it show on the screen here a little text that says, good job, correct, or something like that. And if it's incorrect, the text will say, incorrect, try again. So for that, we'll need to put another label. And I'll put it like underneath the text input box. And I'll put it, yeah, right there is good. And so, so one last thing I want to do here is for the input box, text input box. I'm not going to change the ID. I'm not worried about that. We only have one of these, so it'll be easy to tell which is which. But the placeholder text here is one, you've probably seen this before. It's like some text that's in there that's kind of grayed out, that's in a box before you put something in it. So I'm going to just say, enter answer here. Okay. And so it just makes it clear in the app that this is where somebody would put their answer for this question. Okay. So this is the screen for our question 2, but we also have to think about how do we get to question 2 from the previous question, right? So in our previous question, if it was incorrect, it'd go to incorrect. If it was correct, it would go to this page, okay? And so for here, I'm going to put a button that says, next question or something like that. So I'll just put next ID, and maybe I'll just say next question here in the text box. Okay. So now I think we've got all of the different elements that we need for it, and so let's code what it is that's going to happen. Okay. So for the code, we'll do another one of these on events that when you click on the next button, oops, not Mercury, on next, it should go to question 2. So I'm going to grab set screen again and change it to question 2. There we go. So that's how we're going to get to our question 2. So now for the coding of question 2, what do we want to happen? So for this, there's a few things that we want to happen. We want it to, when somebody types an answer in here, then we're going to click on submit. And when we click on submit, we want it to check to see if the answer was 9. If it is 9, we want it to change this text to say, good job or something like that. And if it's not 9, then we want this text to say, incorrect, try again. Okay. So we'll again need an on event block. Okay. So this is for when we click the submit button. So I'm going to do submit and then click. And then for this, we want it to do something different than before. It's not just changing the screen. We want it to check what was in that box. Okay. So for that, we're going to go to controls. So we're going to do this if else block. Okay. So in the controls menu, it's the blue one. We're going to grab this if else block and we'll put it inside our on event here. And so we're going to say if the answer inside this is equal to 9, we want it to change the text. Okay. So for this inside the if, we want it to check. So we're going to go to the math menu, and we're going to grab this one that has the 2 equal signs. So this is the equality operator. This is one to check if two things are the same. And so what we want to check to see if the same is if the text inside there is equal to 9. I'm going to put 9 in the second box. And for this one, we're going to go to the user interface controls, and it's near the top, this one that says get text. It's going to be get text, and I'll drop it inside there. Get text of the, scroll down a little bit. Where is it? Oh, there it is, very bottom, text input 1. There we go. So get text from this input text. Check to see if it's equal to 9. Okay. So if it is equal to 9, we want it to do something. We want it to change this text to be to say, good job or something. So I'm going to scroll down and grab this one that says set property. There. So this set property allows us to change any of those different things that an element's property is. So if I go back to design and click on the text here, any of these different things here. So I can change the text, the width, the Y position, the font, any of these different things I can change with that block. Okay. So set properties, and we want to set the property of the text. Set property of the text there, which is, I didn't change the ID of that. Let me go back and change that. So let's go to design and text. And so this one, it's label 5, right? So this is why we need to label these things. So I'm going to call this one, let's call this the feedback text, okay? This is feedback on if you got that question right. So I'll call it feedback 1. Okay. So if we go to code, and I'll make this ID be feedback 1. There we go. And we want to change the property of the text of it. And we want the text to say, I'll have it say, good job, or correct, good job. Okay. So that's if we get it correct. So it's if it equals 9, else meaning if it's anything other than equal to 9, we'll do something else. And so for that one, we'll again set property, change it to feedback 1, or no, so property feedback 1, there we go. Text, and we'll have the text be incorrect, try again. There we go. All right, so that is what we have for our code part of this. So I'm going to click run on this. And when I click run, it takes me back to the beginning. So I know Mercury is correct. Takes me there. Next question gets me here. And I'm going to put an answer in here. Let me just put, I'll put 18. Submit. Incorrect, try again. So I'll try and I'll put, this time I'll put 9 in there. Submit. It says correct. Good job. So there we can see how we can use a text box. The one thing I don't really like about this is notice that when I get to it, and let me run this just to get back to it. Next question. It has text there already, right? Wouldn't it be nice if that text box just were kind of hidden at first and it only shows up whenever I click submit and it gives me that feedback of either correct or incorrect. And so we can do something about that. So let's go ahead and change something about it. So one thing that we can do is we can hide elements that we have on the screen. So let me go back to question 2 so we can see it. And what we can do is we can set the properties. You can do it through set properties. That's one, and hidden is one of the properties you can change on it. But there's also this one that says show element and hide element. And so that's just kind of a shortcut way of doing it instead of having to do the set properties one and do that. So I'm going to do this hide element, and I'm going to do this above here. Actually, I'm going to do it, maybe I'll do it above there, okay? So I'll hide it before we even get to question 2, okay? So I'm going to do hide element of feedback 1. There we go. And so it should be hidden, but we want it to show it after we click on this. So we're going to put this inside this on event that when I submit, click the submit button, it'll show this feedback 1. And I'll even have it after it chooses which of these things to change the text to, okay? So now if I go back and click run, go to Mercury, next question, submit 9, submit, there we go. And it wasn't showing up before, but now it showed up after I click submit. So that is an example of how we can use an input box, text input box to get information and to do something with that. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes here. Just play around, try and add another question if you want to. Play around, change some of the questions. And you'll notice that this one, you have to know what the correct answer is for your code, right? To be able to put it in, right? So this is only going to check to see what you have told it to check and see if it's correct or not, right? So you have to make sure that in your coding, you've put the right answer in there. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to play around with the quiz. And let me open it up. Are there any questions that folks have? Is there something you want to do with yours that you're not sure how to?
And just as a reminder, I'm also monitoring the chat. So if there are any other questions, you can type them or you guys can see them.
Does anybody want to share what their quiz is like? I could stop sharing and then somebody can share their screen if anybody wants to. If so, just raise your hand and we'll let you do that. I'm getting some glare on my screen. Let me close my shade over here. There we go. All right, so if nobody wants to share with me, at least, let me show you how you can share your app with yourself or with somebody else, okay? So one thing that we can do is share it. Like, this app is kind of nice that you can have it on the screen here, and it has this simulator where you can see what it's like. But wouldn't it be cool to see it on an actual phone, right? So you can. So what you can do is click here on the share button on the top menu bar, and it'll bring up a dialog box. And so you can either have a link of it, you can email that to somebody, you can publish it. If you publish it, it will go up on to the code.org website. And there are thousands of things that people have put on, just little apps. But you can also send it to a phone. So if I click on send to phone, you can either scan, use the QR code to scan it, or you can enter a phone number. And so I'm just going to text myself here and click send. And so it was sent to my phone. I just got the text there on my phone. Let me stop sharing the screen for a sec. So I just got it here on my phone. Let me click on that. It opens it up, and give a sec to load. And there it is on my phone. So I can use it on my phone. I can click Mercury, see that it takes me to this one. Next question. And then let me just enter in, I'll put, I don't know, 65, submit. And it says incorrect. So there you go. So you can see how you can get the app onto your phone. Any questions about that or about sharing your app? Yeah, all right. We've got a little bit more time, so we're gonna try a different app instead of the quiz that I'll show you how to make, and this will be one that allows us to use data. Okay, so let me go back to sharing my screen. All right. So what we can do is we can create a new app here. Any apps that you create on your home screen, on your dashboard, you'll have it saved there. So you don't have to worry about clicking save or anything like that. It saves automatically as you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the create button and click on App Lab again. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a new screen here, a new untitled project. And I'm going to rename this. I'm just going to call this dogs. And you'll see why in a minute. We're going to create and click save. So we're going to create an app which uses a data set that's already created. Okay, we're going to create an app that will show kind of the name and picture of a breed of dog. So I'll have a button that I click, and it'll randomly choose a breed of a dog, and it'll show the name and a picture of it. Okay, and so for that, we're going to have to get that data set. So if we click on the data button on the top left, this has some data libraries that are preloaded into App Lab. And some of these are ones that update regularly. So for instance, under the Spotify charts, it has the top 50 worldwide and the top 50 songs on Spotify. And this gets updated daily, right? So this is something that will be updated daily. So you can use that. Some other ones, like if I go to animals and dogs, this is one that just is a set data set. It's not updated daily or anything like that. It's just a bunch of things. So we're going to go to the dogs one, and I'm going to click on import. And when I do that, you'll see that it just added this table over here, this data table of dogs. Okay, so this over here shows the different data sets that are in your app. And you can add more than one if you wanted to, but we're only going to use this one. So we're going to only add this one for right now. And we can preview it if we want to. We can click preview before, and you'll see that it has the name of dog, kind of the type of the breed, other information about the lifespan, the size, its temperament, and it has an image. See that has like an address for an image for that dog, right? So these are some different things, and you can see it from the ID there's an ID of 1 all the way down to how many are in this data set. It has 100, I think, has 100 and, well, there's 2 pages, 105. Okay, so it has 105 different things in the data set. And so we've imported that data set. And now we're going to design our app. We'll just make this a 1-page app. And we'll have an image. So I'm going to grab an image block here. I'll just put it here at the top. I'll put a label underneath that. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger of a box. And I'm going to make this the size of this, the font size a little bit bigger. Okay, there we go. And then I'll add a button at the bottom. Okay. And for this button, actually, I'm going to go back to text. I'm going to align that to the center. And for the button, we're just going to have the one button. So I'm not going to worry about changing the ID. But for the button, I'm going to have it say, show me a dog. Show me a dog. There we go. All right. So that's essentially all that we need on our screen. We're going to have it so that when I click this, it's going to change this text to have the name of a dog, and it's going to change this image to be the image of that dog. Okay. So let's go to code now. All right. So we're going to need our on event block, right? And the event that we're going to do is when button 1 is clicked. And so for this, we're going to now need to check some data, be able to use the data. So let's click on the data block here, and we're going to do read records. Okay. So we're going to do read records. And the records, read records one is, it's going to refer to a specific data set. This one, it just kind of defaults to my table. And this doesn't have a drop-down menu. This is one where you'll have to put in what the table is that you're using. And our table, let me go back to data, is called dogs. And notice it's a capital D, dogs. And it's important, it's case sensitive. So we want to make sure we have a capital D when we write that. So I'll go back to code and let me change this to dogs. Okay. And this stuff that it first gives you is in the read records thing is it has us, it checks to see all the different things that are in your records, and it'll show the ID number, and it'll print this out in the log. So you have a log in AppLab, and this is just to check that this is kind of working. It's going to print out the ID of it, and then it's going to print out the name. And this .records i.name is dependent on what in your table, how it's typed, right? So it had name with a lowercase, but in our data set here, it has name with a capital N. So we're going to change that to a capital N to make sure that it'll actually read it. I'm going to change this to a capital N name, and then I'm going to run this just to see what goes on. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to click run, click show me a dog, and we'll see that when it does that, down here below, this is our console, and we can see that its log has here, it prints it out of all of the different things. It has the record number, and then it has a colon, and then it does the name of that dog, whatever was in that name column of the data set. Okay. So we can see it's working, right? We can see it's reading that data set. Okay, so I'm just gonna close this now. We don't really need that. That was just to check to make sure we're reading the data set. But what we want to do is we want it to choose a random dog, and then we'll have it display the name and the image of it. Okay, I'm gonna click reset. So what we want to do now is we want it to get a random, we want to set a variable. Okay, so we're going to create a variable here, and I'm going to grab this one that says variable x equals, okay? And we'll put this inside the on event here. And we'll say variable x. And this is going to be something that we will keep track of, okay? So variable x, we want it to be a random number, okay? And we had 105 different different entries into the dogs database. So we're going to have it be a random number between 1 and 105, okay? So for that, we want to have it variable x be a random number. So if I go to, I think it's under math, has random number. I'll put it in here. Between 1 and not 1 and 10, but 1 and 105. Okay. So this is the way to choose a random number between 1 and 105. Choose a variable x. And now we're going to say we want to have that number is going to be the ID for whichever dog we're choosing, right? So it creates a random number, and then what we want to do is go under user interface controls, and we're going to set the properties. Scroll down and get to set property of ID. In this case, we'll do the label, and we'll say we want the text to be. And we don't want the text to be just any text. We want it to be the record, the name of the record of whichever one it is, of that random number is, okay? So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna highlight and I'm gonna delete the text, and I'm also gonna delete these quotation marks. So quotation marks make it so that whatever's in the quotation marks is gonna be in the text. But I wanna create a record here. So I'm gonna kind of type out and recreate what this is saying here. So it's going to be record, a bracket of x, because x is our variable. And then we're going to do a dot and name. Oops, name. Okay. And so this, when I click off of it, you'll see it kind of changes it into that purple. Okay. So this is choosing for the record of x. X is the ID number of it. For record x, the name of it, that's what we want to fill this text. So let's go over to our simulator, and I'll click run, and I'll click show me a dog. Oops. Hold on. Label 1. There's something wrong here in my code. Let's see, do I have something written wrong here? All right, give me a sec, just a sec. Let me stop sharing for a second, just look something up. Make sure I have my code right. All right, let's try this again. Make sure I have everything in here typed correctly. Should be label 1, text, random number. let me retype this. I think I've got extra quotation or extra brackets in here. Let me just delete this whole thing here. Let me just drag this off and drag this out. And let's retype this in. We want the text to be records of I of X. Let's try this again. Still getting the same error here. Oh, I see what it is. I have it in the wrong space there. There we go. Here is what it is. I don't have it inside the read records. That's what the problem is. I misplaced it. It should be up here. So it's inside read records. There we go. Because it needs to be inside here because this is, it has to be inside because that's where it's reading the record of the dog thing. So a simple thing like that where I have it in the wrong space. So let's try that one more time. Run, show me a dog. There we go. So that's how we're going to get that to work. And let's do one more thing for the picture. So we'll set property and we'll do the same type of thing for the image. And instead of the width, we want to choose what the image is. And we'll have this be, delete that, delete the quotation marks, and do records bracket X bracket dot and image with a capital I believe. If I go back to data and check what it is. So it's capital I there. Yep. So I'll go back to my code and that should be it. And we'll reset, run it, and show me a dog. There we go. So it shows, each time I click it, it's going to show a different dog breed. It's going to show the name and the image. And I can actually modify this. If I change the design, make this image a little bit bigger. There we go. Make this text, maybe this font size a little bit bigger. There we go. And I'm actually going to change the theme of this. Let's make it something a little prettier. How about there? There we go. So I'll click run, show me a dog, and there we go. There is my dog breed app. All right, so any questions? And, it was a great opportunity for me to show that sometimes there is some troubleshooting that has to go on when you're creating an app or doing any coding at all, right? So always looking to see where your code is at, the positioning of things, make sure that sometimes things are case sensitive. So sometimes just a capital N is something that's necessary to be able to make something work. All right. I'll turn it back over to you, Anita.